Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house. I recently got myself Arrow Video's Hellraiser Trilogy, which is essentially the first 4 Hellraiser movies on Blu-ray, even though I already owned Arrow Video's Blu-rays of Hellraiser 1 and 2, and I decided to double dip on those first 2 movies for the express purpose of getting my hands on the workprint version of Hellraiser 4, Hellraiser Bloodline. A quick potted history for those not in the know. Hellraiser Bloodline was tampered with by the studio so much that the director Kevin Yeager asked for his name to be removed from the movie. So the version of Hellraiser Bloodline we have had up until now has been an Alan Smithy movie. I love the intriguing world of alternate versions of movies, and while we will never see, alas, restored footage to Event Horizon, and David Lynch is never going to go back and put together some version of Dune that more closely resembled his original vision, we do occasionally get gifted alternate versions of movies. For example, the assembly cut of Alien 3, which I happen to prefer over the theatrical cut of Alien 3. With the relatively recent release of Exorcist 3, we get what's called the Legion cut, which to some extent restores footage that was used to bring the film more in line with how William Peter Blatty originally intended to tell the story. Similarly, with Clive Barker's Nightbreed, we've relatively recently got a director's cut of that, which again more closely resembles what he wanted for the film, which I happen to really dig and possibly prefer over the theatrical cut of Nightbreed. In fact, definitely prefer. So, knowing that Hellraiser Bloodline had had such a troubled production and that the final product we got was not the story everyone going in wanted to tell, I was fascinated to see what this workprint version was like, because I've always liked Hellraiser Bloodline and I've always thought that there is a good, if not great, story in there, and I do like the theatrical cut, but I also have to do a little bit of mental gymnastics to sort of sand down some of the janky edges that are produced. And maybe I think they're only janky edges because I know of the production troubles, but essentially Hellraiser Bloodline follows 3 generations of Philippe Lamarchand, the creator of the puzzle box that summons the Cenobites. You follow him and his descendants throughout a couple of different time frames as they wrestle and wrangle with Pinhead and the Cenobites down the centuries in this sort of bloodline feud. But the studio was unhappy with how long the film took to introduce Pinhead, who doesn't turn up until the middle section set in modern day. There's a section in the past, there's a section set in modern day, and there's a section set way in the future on a space station. And they wanted to get their poster boy as front and center in front of the camera as quickly as possible. So the film was essentially fucked with, taken apart and put back together with reshoots in a completely different configuration. The final act future set space station stuff was just used as a kind of bookends to the whole thing. So we start off in space, then Lamarchand's descendant in space tells the story of the previous intergenerational warring, and then we finally loop back round to the space station where the story ends. In the workprint version, and it's very explicit when it says that this is not Kevin Yeager's version of the movie, but this is as close to what the story he wanted to tell, and presumably Peter Atkins, the scriptwriter, as close as they wanted to tell. We see the story unfold in chronological order, and that change alone completely reconfigures the entire story, makes it make a hell of a lot more sense, and also makes it about something where the original theatrical release is sort of about nothing. Now, it must be said that the workprint version is VHS quality. It's time-stamped all the way through. This really is a sort of hinky, cobbled together sort of workprint presentation of this is as close as we can get to the film that they were trying to make. Weirdly, in some aspects, that VHS quality helps this workprint version, because I thought the modern day set stuff always seemed to suffer from a stretched budget. The VHS quality of the workprint version hides a lot of the faults of that, and I could kind of get on board with it a little bit more without cringing that some of it looked a little bit cheap. But what we get now that the story is told chronologically is a really interesting take on an addition to Hellraiser mythos, specifically the ongoing feud down the centuries between Pinhead and Angelique. Angelique is the demon at the front and center of Hellraiser Bloodline for the longest time. In the France of centuries past, a couple of demonologists summon Angelique, a typical, there's a pentagram on the floor and they summon a demon and they capture that demon and she has to do their bidding. The first change that the workprint version makes is that it's not these two aristocratic rubes that commission Le Marchand into making the configuration box. It is Angelique herself, once she has summoned, giving Hell an incredible agency in the whole history of Hellraiser mythos. A demon is summoned from hell and put into human form and brings with her the ability for humans to summon demons much more, let's put it industrially, rather than having to learn the rites and the rituals and do the pentagram and stuff like this. She gives the plans to Le Marchand, who makes the box, and then from then on, Hell's agents on Earth have a portal through which they can come, and they don't need to have to sit around and wait and tap their thumbs for someone to say the right words of mumbo jumbo in the right order. It's absolutely fucking brilliant idea. Unfortunately, because of this change, some of the stuff set in the past is excised. We don't ever get to meet Le Marchand's wife, and I did love all of those scenes, but in service of the story, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. We have Angelique now trapped on Earth for a couple of centuries, serving her master, who is all but immortal until he stands in Hell's way. And so they've gone the long way round to get to the modern day stuff, which we jump to, by which time, when Pinhead is summoned, he is the more modern avatar of Hell. And Hell has changed. It has become more organized. They operate through fear rather than the seduction and temptation. The old school Faustian sort of Hell methods. So you have this setup where Angelique is sort of old school Hell, and Pinhead is the new kind of Hell's civil servant, if you like. And there's a battle for which method is going to potentially win out overall. If you've watched the film, the theatrical version of the film, you'll know that the building that he designs for John Merchant is an architect in the present day section of the film, but the building he has designed is essentially a lament configuration cube on a much grander scale, a portal to Hell on an industrial scale now, and then later on in the future the space station is an even grander version of it. So there's this idea of Hell's purpose, starting with a little box to industrialize things, and then they want to get bigger and grander, they want to mechanize. Simply mixing it up like this gives each time frame its own urgency and agency as well. When you bookend everything with a section that's set way in the future, you know for the entire runtime that you're just waiting to get back to that future set story, and there are no real stakes here in the flashbacks because they're just stories being told about things that have already happened, and we have to wait to get back to the space station so we can see the resolution of everything. Whereas when you put it chronologically, every time frame has its own urgency and its own meaning. The antagonism between Angelique and Pinhead is ramped up in the workprint version to the point where they are actually sparring demons rather than both working for the same goal. And that just little addition to the mythos of hell, and it just adds flavors to Pinhead and his kind of idea of an ordered hell, which I love that about the character. And I love the idea that a demon that's been stuck on our earthly plane for a few centuries hasn't caught up with how hell works now, so she's still doing the old school Faustian method, and they really don't get on. They don't like one another. So whilst the quality is low and it's VHS, and while you can ignore the timestamp all the way through, just as a little window into what could possibly have been, I just think this work print version of the movie gives us a much more coherent story that is about something, which is a bonus with a movie, and an absolutely fascinating addition to Hellraiser mythology that's poles apart from the lumpen but intriguing mess that we got with Hellraiser Bloodline. Would I sit down and watch it again? Do you know what? I probably would. I think the way these changes sort of lift the story into something much more interesting and intriguing. As a fan of the Hellraiser mythology, do you know what? I think I would watch this version again. I wouldn't necessarily rush to see it again because it's such low quality, but the story that this version tells is far superior, I think, to the story that the theatrical version tells. Somewhere between the two, if we could get back some of the Philippe Le Marchand scenes and reintegrate them so we don't have to lose his wife and we don't have to lose that kind of characterization, somewhere between the two, there's an edit that I suspect would be an absolutely superb film. Are you still here at the end? If so, God bless you, governor. Here's a little bit of fun. If you are watching till the very end and want to comment on the video, include #puzzlebox in your comment to let me know that you're a true believer who sticks out to the very end of the video and gets to watch me try and flog me book of horror short stories. 17 Stories of Death and Desire, my horror short story collection. 17 horrifying tales of murder, madness and monsters, which will take you from a West London lockup to the carnival streets of Naples, from the sun-kissed Ibethan beaches to the freezing depths of the Arctic Ocean, and from the dizzying heights of a haunted tower block to the restless graves beneath your feet. You can get this in paperback and ebook. I'd love for you to read it. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Please give it a go and let me know what you think, because you, the reader, have the final say.
I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.